Welcome to the second edition of the Inter-University Debate. This is the fourth group in the second edition. In the first edition, we had Kere University, we had Kabale University, we had Kampala University, and Bugema University, where we saw Makerere University and Kabale University make it to the next round. Now, in this second edition, we have 4 universities. We have Chambogo University, Uganda Pentecostal University, Ndeje University, and Islamic University in Uganda. The previous weeks, we had Chambogo University debate, we had Uganda Pentecostal University and Ndeje University. Today, for this debate, we are having Islamic University in Uganda. I'm your moderator for today's debate. My name is Jena. I'm an advocate, a lecturer, and a tax consultant. Our topic for today is the enjoyment of civic and political liberties in Uganda. What are the bottlenecks? Today, Thursday, 28th October 2021, our debate is running from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. I have 4 panelists from Islamic University in Uganda. To start with, so when I call your name, kindly wave. The first panelist for today's debate, we have Magumu Ivan, who is pursuing Bachelor of Laws from Islamic University in Uganda. Ivan, please wave. Yes, thank you. That is our first panelist. Our second panelist for today's debate, we have Ms. Kiyuba, Jena. Yes, thank you, Jena. Jena is pursuing Bachelor of Laws degree from Islamic University in Uganda. Thank you. Our third panelist for today's debate is Magala Fred, who is also a student of Bachelor of Laws from Islamic University in Uganda. Kindly wave. Yes, thank you. Last but not least, we have Matawo Godfrey, who is also pursuing Bachelor of Laws degree from Islamic University in Uganda. Kindly wave, Godfrey. Yes, thank you so much. So today, we have a panel of lawyers to discuss this topic for today. And this debate is brought to you by Center for Constitutional Governance, that is CCG, and it is on Civic Space TV on YouTube. Now, to introduce this topic, Uganda is a signatory to so many international instruments where civic and political rights and liberties are enshrined. To start with, most prominently, we have the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. Uganda also has these rights enshrined in Chapter 4 of the 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda as amended. And there has been attempts to curtail the enjoyment of the civic and political liberties in Uganda. And we have seen the coming in of laws such as the Public Order Management Act of 2013. We have seen the NGO Act of 2016, the Computer Misuse Act of 2011, among other laws, and several attempts to curtail down the civic liberties in this country. And there has been a big concern that these actions are going to cloud back most of the gains that has been made towards achieving a society where rights and liberties are respected. This is why we are discussing this topic today with my panelists, which is the enjoyment of civic and political liberties in Uganda. What are the bottlenecks? So this is the structure of our debate today, and I would like to request our panelists to pay attention. This is how our debate is going to run. We are going to have opening statements, which are going to be made by each panelist. Each panelist is going to give us an opening statement for 3 minutes. And in your opening statement, you will be answering a question that I will ask. After that, we are going to have one general question that will be answered by all panelists for 5 minutes each. Then after that, we're going to have specific questions but will be directed to the different panelists. Lastly, we shall have closing remarks. So let us have our first opening statement from our first panelist for today's debate. And that panelist is none other than Magumu Ivan. You're going to give us your opening statement in 3 minutes, and the question that you're answering here is, what do you understand by civic and political liberties? So you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. I want to reaffirm to the fact that I'm by name Magumu Ivan, LLB from Islamic University in Uganda. At a time when civic and political liberties are in question, here comes the debate on the same. Well, to make note of what I understand by civic and political liberties, firstly, civic liberties strain from what I may call societal, religious, and then every individual right as a person. Then political liberties strain from political participation, political persecution, political freedom, to mention but a few. Ladies and gentlemen, upon taking power, the current regime gave us hope that atrocities that happened during the previous regimes, for instance, the unpopular murder of Jena would not come again. We all understand that Jena was a religious personnel who was maybe murdered because of his comments and the military again on politics. This shows the history of our civic liberties in Uganda since times immemorial, whereby it has reduced that, for instance, religious leaders should not comment on political affairs. We have seen it that the current regime, where the president comes out openly and says that religious leaders should remain in their lane, they should not talk about politics. But ideally, I believe that political liberties are part of leadership, and when you are a leader, you are responsible for anything in the society. So these religious leaders are not at liberty to express what they feel. Like I earlier on stated, that political liberties, these are straining from participation of everyone to the participation of specific individuals who come as candidates. This is whereby someone is free to make a political decision, be it on an election day or to make a public comment concerning a specific thing. But I'll refer to a very outstanding article in the Daily Monitor by Yusuf Serukuma, where he stated that when our dreams of making it have been reduced to befriending those in government. This is a replica of what is happening. People's political liberties have been suffocated. Much as it may not be expressed, but impliedly, people think that you should not be politically conscious because you have to be friend those in power so that you succeed in life. So to me, making sense of political and civic liberties, I understand them whereby someone is at free will at any time and any hour in their life to make a comment at anything they do or want regarding politics. To you, Madam Moderator.
Okay, thank you so much, Ivan, for that, for defining what civic and political liberties mean. I would like to bring in Ms. Kiyuba Jena. give us her opening statement and respond to the question, what is the current state of civic and political liberties in Uganda? Ms. Jena, you have.
So I'm Jena Kiyuba from the local Islamic University. My question is, what is the current state of political and civic liberties in Uganda? First of all, bring it our mind that without civil and political liberty, the government is responsible. So if we are to answer the question on what is the current state of the political and civic liberties in Uganda, one should first know what do we understand by the political liberty? How do we experience, how do we say that we have the political liberty in the country? And the first thing we should know is that political liberty consists of a right of state in government by voting. That's how I would describe political liberty. And then for civic liberty, I would say that it consists of the freedom from arbitrary interference in one's person by individuals or by the government. In this case, we look at a statement made by Maria Banetti. At one time, she said that democracy is not just about the show of election and government, but about the quality of the political quality and the self-determination that are delivered. So if we are to answer the question on what is the current state of the political and civic rights in Uganda, after understanding the essence of political and civil liberty, we look at the current state of Uganda, sincerely speaking, we do not realize any liberties in Uganda. We realize it to a smaller extent because according to the Constitution, the chapter 4, we have the rights that are written. But rather, if you look at the current state or the happenings in the country, for example, the death of political leaders, the death of army generals, there is we should understand that the threats of political and civil liberty include erosion of privacy. And currently in Uganda, almost we don't have any privacy to the extent that a political leader, just because they are on the opposition side, someone sends an army to come and guard their home, as in they really do not have privacy. And the second threat of political and civil liberty includes the danger of unchecked government. Sincerely, if we are to look at the constitution of our country, we see that there are no checks and balance. The government is unchecked. We literally have a government that is led by the cabinet only, considering the fact that all the other arms of government or the rest of the two arms of the government are overpowered or they are all under the cabinet. So if I'm to give an estimation on the current state of Uganda, of the political liberties in Uganda, I would say we have the political and civic liberties in Uganda in written form, or what we call theory, but rather we don't have them in practice because they really do not apply in Uganda for the fact that the government is undermining the rights that they constituted in the constitution.
Okay, thank you so much, Jena, who started by throwing more light on the definition of civil and political rights, and she went on and gave us the current state of civil and political rights in Uganda. I would like to bring in Fred to give us his opening statement, and I would like to pose the question, who are those responsible for the current state of civil and political liberties in Uganda today?
Well, thank you very much, moderator. I'm glad to be part of this youthful debate concerning our nation that is shattering and literally going down because of political degradation and loss of morals when it comes to socio, economic, and every aspect of life. Well, you posed the question to me that who is responsible for these civic rights and the political rights? Well, before I proceed, I'd like to bring up a few questions into our mind, and literally any reasonable man can answer them. One, as a nation, who is leading us? As a nation, wholesomely, as Uganda, who do we bow to? Is it God or the current president, or the cabinet, or the leaders? Well, what's the current state of democracy within our country? Have we voted for the voters, for the leaders we want, or these leaders have just been imposed on us? Those are the few questions that I can bracket out, and I'm going to answer them in my opening statement. Before I proceed, I'm Magala Fred, a law student from Islamic University in Uganda. Proceeding on the issue, if you look at our current government that is very old, approximately 39 years in governance, and literally it has a 10-point program where it has literally done nothing, or where it has done it in theory, or for a few designated areas, since Uganda is a heterogeneous nation, and these people are literally binding our nation to a certain society. They are leading us to a certain tribe, leaving out the other tribes. Who is responsible for these rights? It is the government, because we define a government as the one that leads the state and people subscribe to it. The government with it has an instrument of power that has to protect and also put different sanctions upon the people who do infringe on certain rights. For example, if you look at our constitution, it provides for different rights under chapter 4, but have these rights been protected? Well, I'm a law student. We can assess this from the different cases that have been tackled and handled. If you look at a case in Uganda currently that is being handled by a competent court, and it's a murder case, trust me, one has been killed. One was killed out of torture. One was killed out of very, very, very stupid sentiments. And then the government goes on to say, well, we are reducing his sentence from 40 years to 18 years. Literally, the persons or the body that is responsible for these laws, which is the government, which of course, under the constitution, has laid down the different format of a body, which I call the judicial organ. Literally, we call it the judiciary under Article 126 of the Constitution. But it is tainted with corruption, tainted with very many things that don't see these rights being protected. We are seeing people run away with crimes of murder. We are seeing people running away with crimes of corruption. We are seeing people doing every stupid thing they want in our nation. And in this useful nation, where the average age of the citizens are in between just 18 and 45. But we always carry on and say the government is responsible. Well, the constitution is there for the government in order to restrict and know how to carry on these rights and to also impede different things that shouldn't be done and what should be done. But I think the nation, the government itself has failed out, since it has failed to control its judiciary. These people are just enjoying big sums of money. These people are just enjoying their only budget that is autonomous. They make what they want, they pay themselves prices, but they have a backlog of cases. Since the judiciary is under the government, I tell you, it is the government responsible for the upholding and also protecting these civic and political rights. So I conclude, allow me to conclude, Madam Fancy. So I conclude by saying it is the government that is supposed to protect these civil and political liberties, but then it seems it is the one that is now going against them, since we are witnessing different political players being imprisoned and being also upheld after being granted bail. We are seeing many being tortured. We are seeing many being compensated and then they are not paid. We are seeing some being killed. Trust me, the government is responsible, but to a less extent, it has done what is supposed. It has done what it's supposed to do. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Fred. We shall trust on that and we will come back to you. That was Fred. I would like to move on to Mr. Matawo Godfrey. I would like to bring you into the discussion. And my question is, how important are civic and political liberties?
Thank you very much. Madam Moderator, and you, dear panelists that are getting us online. It is a very important time that we are sharing such a big topic of national importance. Decades, after so many years of Uganda attaining independence, the shape of Uganda, the general picture of Uganda, when you look at the current status quo, is just like a once beautiful woman who, after the marriage, has lost her beauty because of the rude mentality of the husband, who has now left the scars, who has now left the emotional and the psychological pain in her. And this is the Uganda we have currently. Madam Moderator, the question that you've just posed before me, what is the importance of such liberties? Before answering such a question, it is very important that we first of all have a good history and answer the fundamental 4 questions. Question number 1, where has Uganda come from as a country? And question 2, where are we going as a country? Number 3, where have we reached? And number 4, how are we going to where we are going? At the end of the day, these liberties, the political liberties, help draw a picture in which a country has to follow. They hope to define where power must end in such circumstances. When we have the people speaking as a country, when we have the masses speaking against aspects like corruption, when we have people uttering comments on the leadership of the country, when we have the religious leaders speak and criticize the bad in the country, it defines a method in which a government should run. It is actually a check and a balance to the acts of the government. And we have seen this. If we don't have leaders like the opposition that stand up and speak, trust me, we shall have mess in the running of the government. It is the reason why we should have these political liberties. It is the reason why we should have these civic liberties in the country, so that we define a method, we define a standard in which a government must run and operate. Take an example. We have issues. We've had issues in Parliament where we think the government is running on well, where we think the ministers are doing their part. But what is there? What do we see? We need the liberties so that people can stand and speak the ill in the government. We need such liberties so that people can appreciate where there is due good cause. And at the end of the day, we shall appreciate the governance. There is always limit. When we have these liberties, the leaders will know where to end. The law shall take its lane in such aspects. But where we don't have these liberties as a country, trust me, a few people shall be in power. We shall have resources vandalized. And this is what we are seeing currently in the government. Like I said, Uganda currently, after so many years of independence, is like a once beautiful woman who has now lost the shape simply because has been brutalized by the man. Today we don't see the proper governance in the country simply because we don't have these liberties. We don't see things moving out well because we don't have these liberties. But if the leaders spoke, if the church leaders spoke, if the traditional leaders stood up and spoke, either against or in support of the government, where it is good, they make a recommendation. And where it is bad, they criticize. Trust me, we shall have a people's government. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Fred. I can see everybody is so passionate about this topic, and thank you so much for your opening statements. Now we are going into the next level of our debate, and I would like to bring Ivan into the discussion. So I'm going to pose a general question that is going to be answered by all panelists. You each have 5 minutes to answer this question, and this is the actual issue in this debate. So the question is, what are the bottlenecks to the enjoyment of civic and political liberties in Uganda? So Ivan, you have 5 minutes to answer that question. Yes, Ivan, let me just repeat the question. There is a general question. So what are the bottlenecks to the enjoyment of civic and political liberties in Uganda? So Ivan, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. Hope you get me now.
Yes, I can hear you.
Well, what are the bottlenecks in the enjoyment of political and the civic rights? Having defined what the former is, I want to go ahead and try to explain what are the bottlenecks curtailing the status quo of civic and political rights. First and foremost, we shall talk about economic dependence. This can be looked at in the broad picture as unemployment. But that alone, I want to narrow it down to economic dependence. This stems from job security, job insecurity, how to get a job, how to maintain a job, so on, so forth. Very many young men, Uganda being mostly a youthful country, are either unemployed or employed. And we are alive to the fact that the country is the biggest employer. Civic and political rights have been brutalized or have been killed because of that. Young men are even scared of participating in politics. Young men are even scared of participating in the fight against the violation of their civic rights. So, I will not leave without mentioning that economic dependence is a big bottleneck in actualizing civic and political enjoyment of rights. Then we have what we call law and policy. Being a law student who is soon going to understand jurisprudence, it is only in Uganda where we have target laws. I'm sorry to mention this, but it is factual. Laws are being made targeting a section of people. It is a policy and down that people's civic and political liberties are frustrated. For instance, I'm going to talk about the political and the civic rights of demonstration. Demonstration and dissatisfaction are provided for in our constitution. But I want to task whoever is responsible to bring us how many peaceful demonstrations have been conducted in this country. This shows how policy and law has become a bottleneck in actualizing civic and political enjoyment of rights. For instance, the recently repealed law of Public Order Management Act. It was used as a target to the opposition politicians and those with dissatisfactions to come out and express themselves. But hey, after it being repealed, I was among the few people who did not celebrate because I knew that the policy means that people do not have these rights. And now, when we had to shift to other laws, for instance, we had to use COVID to frustrate people's interaction, even if they tried to follow the SOPs. Having said that, we have to also to look at the political laws governing politics or elections. For instance, one is given a period of not more than a month to solicit for evidence all over the country so that he can file a presidential petition, election petition. This is practically impossible because even a chairperson LC5 may not get sufficient evidence to do so. At the end of the day, these people have not been given their freedom to look out for these places, to look out for the affidavits, to look out to gather evidence so that they can take up to court. And when they end up withdrawing their petitions or even presenting them with less evidence. So policy and the law has been a very big bottleneck in frustrating civic and political rights. Then it is a deliberate government move that some of these things are frustrated. For instance, we have had NGOs like SEDU, we have had NGOs like Chapter 4 Uganda, which are doing nothing but entirely to see that civic and political liberties are taken forward. But the government, without justification, comes up and throw up charges against the major stakeholders of these NGOs or even take away their work permits. So taking government's policy of taking down such NGOs has been a very big bottleneck in frustrating civic and political rights. And when you look at the policy of recruitment, I'm talking about nepotism. The government has a very good network of security from the top up to the sub-county level, which could be used to calm down insecurity. But however, this has been used to identify who is in support of the government and who is not. So they therefore end up giving jobs on those merits. I have evidences whereby people even getting a government bursary, they should be in support of a certain group of people.
Okay.
Yes, going forward, other bottlenecks is when, for instance, the leaders in power, dictatorship.
Ivan, kindly conclude on that point.
Madam Moderator, let me conclude on this. Rule of law, lack of rule of law has been a very big bottleneck of this. In your opening remarks, you made sure that you mentioned that Uganda is a signatory to international agencies like the ICC, Convention for International Human Rights, but it is on record that the head of state has come out to call the ICC a bunch of useless people. What does this mean? And yet you are a signatory. It shows that there is no rule of law and that absolute dictatorship has been a very big bottleneck in actualizing civic and political liberties. I beg to end here.
Oh, thank you so much, Ivan. That was a really, really good liberation. Let me bring in Miss Jena into a discussion. So, Jena, you have 5 minutes to give us your submission on what are the bottlenecks to the enjoyment of civic and political liberties in Uganda. Yes, Jena. What are the bottlenecks to the enjoyment of civic and political liberties in Uganda?
Okay. So relating to the submission by Magumu Ivan, as before I answer the question of what are the bottlenecks, I would like to remind us that without civil and political rights, development is incomplete. So bottlenecks we shall understand it and say these are the things that are making us fail to achieve the political and civil rights in Uganda, which are theoretical. They are written somewhere, they are not practiced anywhere. That is my view. So I would say that there is intimidation and obstruction of civil society in Uganda. How? First of all, in Uganda, the major threats, as I earlier said, that threaten the political and civil liberty were erosion of privacy and danger of unchecked government. So when we are looking at the bottleneck, those are they are the principles I am going to use to answer this question. First of all, unchecked government. Madam Moderator, we are in the government with the three arms of government, but try one of them overpowering the other. In the matter that why would a government that has three arms of government not have a specific committee to appoint the judicial officers, but rather the constitution of the Uganda that we are in is stating that the president appoints and then there's a committee that approves. But rather, why wouldn't we have a committee that appoints and maybe the president approves, or why wouldn't we just have a specific committee that appoints the judges and we live with the judges that are appointed by a specific committee? This is all coming out. It is resulting into unchecked government because we are looking at a country whereby the judiciary, the members of the judiciary or the judges, they are all appointed by the president, who is a member of the cabinet. Therefore, it is really, really hard to make an independent decision by the judiciary that is against the person who appointed the person that is in such a decision. So the bottlenecks, the first one is the unchecked government of Uganda. The second one is the selfishness of individuals. Madam Moderator, we are in a country where we have more than 500 MPs. And it would be as simple as saying hi for someone or for the members of parliament to collectively come up with a strategy that would come up with the political and civic liberties. But we are looking in a country where we have, out of the 500 members of parliament, including the opposition, we only have around 5 members of the opposition who are standing up. And what is happening to them is that their privacy is gone. They do not have peace of mind. They are imprisoned. They're having arbitrary arrests. And these are some of the examples of the failure to acknowledge political and civil liberties. So the selfishness is coming from us, the individuals. This is resulting in nepotism. We look at a country where you find an office of a brother who employs that uncle and employs a cousin and employs a relative, irrespective of the qualifications they have. It all comes back to selfishness. And the other thing is the target laws, as Ivan has said earlier, the target laws. We are in Uganda where the laws are targeting a specific period of time, where laws are targeting a specific society, where they're targeting a specific individual. For example, we look at this, the Tojikwatako case, that Tojikwatako saga. We are looking at it and we basically do not know the essence of, of you coming back to power after you have ruled for more than 10 years. Madam Moderator, these target laws are the things that are making us, they are not helping us to achieve the political and the civic liberties. And if you look at it, how do we assess that we have not achieved, or how do we assess that we have the bottlenecks, or that the bottlenecks exist in Uganda? First of all, we are still seeing sex and gender discrimination at the places of work. We are seeing discrimination in accordance to race, tribe, and and all of that is against the constitution. But Madam Moderator, I would like to tell you that the government knows what is happening on the ground, because they know, and some of those persons in government already have such offices, and they're equally doing what is against the political and civil liberties, but they do not care. We are looking at places at work, like sexual harassment at workplaces. We are looking at denial of notice opportunity to be heard. We are seeing that people are taken to prison and they are not heard, which is all against the civil and political liberties. So, as I conclude, Madam Coordinator, Madam Moderator, I would like to challenge us as Ugandans or as persons who are attending and will get an opportunity to see this, that we should first ask our questions that who are the change makers? Who are those individuals that have to bring us the change that we would want, the liberties that we want? And then secondly, let us assess the ability of the revenue of the country. And then structure, because we are participating in the elections of the next term. Let us assess the political structure and the size of opportunities we have in our country.
Okay, thank you so much, Jena. Let's hear from Fred from Magala. Fred. So Fred, you have 5 minutes to give us your submission. What are the bottlenecks to the enjoyment of civic and political liberties in Uganda?
Once again, thank you, moderator. So the question is straightforward, but I think it is very open even to a 1-year-old to know what is really retarding our nation from developing in every aspect, be it political, socio-economic, or anything, because all this kind of development, its base are the liberties. If you give a person, if the right to liberty is well observed, it means a person will have the energy to move from one district to another to work peacefully. If people are out to demonstrate peacefully, where there is need for change, these people will demonstrate, and then they will cause an impact, and then something will be changed. But then if such civil rights are not respected and brought up, trust me, there are very many bottlenecks and there are very many things that are bringing about that. So, Madam Moderator, allow me to refer to a few people that have come out to comment on this. First, I will comment about Mrs. Miriam Matembe. She was once a minister, and currently she's a human rights activist. While addressing students at Makerere, she said that while President Museveni was coming to power, in his first speech, he said that the best problem that is affecting almost every African country is leaders who overstay in power. And indeed, he said that after gaining that power, he would not do the same. He even predicted and showed us when he will, of course, get out of power. But till now, we are still having a government that has over 13 years. I'm drawing my attention to the first bottleneck, leaders who overstay in power. Trust me, if you overstay, or if you may get your place and you have belly bags, time reaches and you develop immunity. Even when they bite you, you don't care. You're used. So it is like now our nation is used to such autocracy, dictatorial, and also militarism. Where the police is needed, we are seeing the military coming in. Why would you allow the SFC to enter the parliament? Why would you allow them to handle political players as if they are criminals? Why should the army come into the parliament? Are there labels? Was there a bomb planted there? I think a parliament needs people that have qualified to enter it and are also employed there. But due to militarism, due to this government overstaying in power and now seeing that everything can be done in its presence, trust me, liberty, be it political or civil, everything is now down. We can no longer say it has been they have been protected in any manner, apart from those that really feel that the government is on their side. Where am I coming to? I'm drawing your attention to family, friends, relatives, mothers, fathers, and uncles. If we carry out an analysis in the Prime Minister's office, you'll tell me that at least there is a connection to the big lady. I won't speak her name. If you go to the State House, most of the jobs there, it's not out of your competence, but out of your connection. If I draw attention to different contracts that have been won, let me go further into Mubende district. Different minerals have been found there, most especially gold. Trust me, that land was mainly occupied by Banyolo and Baganda, but the people that are now owning such land are not of that tribe. So this kind of tribalism that has been embedded into the system, into the government, is literally impeding and also coming up as a very big bottleneck to the observance and enjoyment of these civil and political liberties. Further, the corruption and all the unethical manners embedded within the judicial system of Uganda. If you look at a very, very, very celebrated judge, Justice of the Supreme Court, literally coming up and saying, let Kyagulanyi go to the people, to the court of the people, as he alleged. I wonder where law is going currently, because we all know the constitution has to be assented to by the people in order to take control. People must have at least been consulted, since it is a social contract between the people and the government. So the man was right that that the court is for the people. So he had the right to say that. And when he comes to court, indeed, he's seeking for justice for anything. Well, I cannot say he won or he lost, but literally the court had to come and look through that. But he was forced to withdraw his petition because he thought nothing would be done. Why was he doing that? Because our history has been tainted by that. Since 1962, Uganda has never changed power peacefully. That is the history. Leave alone that. Let us lay our brains to the different elections that have taken part in Uganda. Is there an election that has not been challenged? I mean, since Museveni took over power. If it is there, I'm sorry. But all I remember is we have a petition for Besigye right here from 2001. We have one for Mama Babazi. We have one for Kyagulanyi Sentamu. We have one for there is a certain pardon? Yes. We have Besigye again. There are very many election petitions that have been coming up. But why are they coming? Another bottleneck is the quality of democracy. In Uganda today, we just celebrate that that there is democracy because we vote, because there is this perpetual thing of voting after 5 years. But what is the quality of democracy? What is the quality? Is the voting done as it has to be done? Ballot stuffing is everywhere. Caning and beating every voter, camping and also bribing different polling agents in order to, very many things have been tainted there. And all that is infringing and also impeding the enjoyment of different civic and political liberties. Madam Moderator, allow me to conclude by saying, me and you and everybody platform, as the youth, as the educated, as the land, we own the change and we own our country. Let us come up, not end on such interactions, but also go further and chase for the liberation of our country by agitating for the right way of enjoying our civil and political rights and all liberties. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Fred, for that good deliberation. Let's bring Godfrey into the discussion. So Godfrey, you have 5 minutes to give us your submission on what are the bottlenecks to the enjoyment of civic and political liberties in Uganda.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Michael, panelists have spoken about so many bottlenecks, enjoyment of the liberties in Uganda. They have spoken much about unemployment. They have said a lot about rule of law. They have spoken widely about the bottlenecks. But at the end of the day, we would summarize this as the power of the gun. Madam Moderator, you can be a very educated person. You could even be a professor. You could be everything, but once a gun is pointed at you, trust me, there is nothing that can yield this country. Let's take an instance. Today we see that ministers in this country have been reduced to reason like village chiefs. Why? Because they fear losing up their jobs. At the end of the day, who is their supervisor? Who is at their head? It is the gun. If the ministers who are in charge of big positions, my brother has just spoken about corruption. But how does corruption come into this? Can a minister speak about a corrupt permanent secretary of his or her ministry? The power of the gun is everything in this country. Professors in universities, people who have studied the law, speak about the likes of the Kanyahambas, speak about so many professors in different universities, professors of economics. But at the end of the day, the power of the gun. Can a professor really stand and criticize such aspects on the national forum? Today, the same professors who have a lot of knowledge, when you look at their reasoning, their good reasoning only ends in class. They will teach the law, they will teach the economics, but when they reach on a national event, their reasoning is just like a UPE dropout, simply because there is fear of the state. Let's look at the religious leaders. These are people that would be helping us in championing such things and aspects in the country. But what do the religious leaders do? They keep mute. Why? Because they are being fed by the same gun we are trying to speak about. If the bishop is being inaugurated, if the king or the traditional leader of a place gets into power, what is he given? He's given a vehicle. What is he given? He's given, of course, a brown envelope. And what do you expect? So such aspects, look at civil servants. These are people that would be championing these aspects, but they sacrifice their professionals, their competencies simply because of the political mediocrity that we're speaking about. And at the end of the day, Madam Moderator, when you look at the power of the gun, it carries a lot of components around. It is the same power of the gun that has come with the commercialization of politics. Today, the competent leaders cannot contest simply because they do not have the money. And something that is very important that we should note in this discussion is that no politician will benefit from commercialized politics apart from the big man himself of this country. At the end of the day, money is given to the citizens. What about the service lever at the end of the day? So at the end of the day, the leaders in government are predators, while the people down here have nothing. My co-panelists have been addressing the aspect of rule. Rule of law is something very fundamental. When we speak about liberties, the civil, and we come and speak about the aspect of the political liberties, we address the aspect of human rights. We address the aspect of the supremacy of the law. But at the end of the day, all these do not come simply because of the power of the gun. So at the end of the day, we're trying to address the aspect of liberty. Can the people speak in the country? Can the church come and speak? Can the traditional leaders, who are major stakeholders in this country, come and speak? No, simply because it is the power of the gun. So at the end of the day, the country is left in a very miserable state. Let's look at now the power of the gun itself, Madam Moderator. When there is the power of the gun in the country like Uganda, you do not expect, of course, to be there. Rule of law where leaders can do what they want. At the end of the day, there is no penalty. Look at General Peter. very brutal, cruel, and very human man, went in no minute and killed hundreds of people in Kasese. And at the end of the day, he's given a promotion. So this is what we're trying to speak about, the power of the gun. And at the end of the day, there will be so many things, but we tie ourselves on the aspect of the gun. I rest my case, Madam Moderator. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Godfrey, and thank you to all the panelists who deliberated on this question of what are the bottlenecks to the enjoyment of civic and political liberties. And that was the second level of this debate. Now we are moving into the third level of our debate, where we are going to have specific questions. And I would like to start right away with Ivan. So Ivan, earlier on, Jena gave us the current state of civic and political liberties in Uganda, where she talked about these laws, these rights are on paper, but they are not being practiced, they're not being respected by the state. So here comes my question now to Ivan. I would like you to compare Uganda and other countries in terms of observance of civic rights and liberties.
Oh, thank you so much, Madam Moderator. I'm not going to go very far in comparison of this. I'm going to be within the region of East Africa. My case study will be in Tanzania and then Kenya. Well, just like Uganda, previously in Tanzania, there was no or relatively low levels of civic liberties, whereby we see that civilians have been censured, repressed. It is what the big men want that appears in the papers. It is no difference when it comes to Uganda, where head of state comes out and said that a national newspaper is an enemy of the state, simply because it does not work within his rhymes and tunes. However, I will commend Tanzania when it comes to political liberties. It is on record that Tanzania is the only country that has never had bloodshed when it comes to transition in power. Unfortunately, here in Uganda, we have never had a peaceful transfer of power. This brings nothing, but it shows, like Jena said, we have perfect laws trying to orchestrate civic and political liberties, but in actual sense, they are just trade. When it comes to reality, they are nowhere to be seen. Take a recent question of transition of Tanzania, whereby late John Magufuli passed on, and we had the vice president take over. The last our law states that with the history that even during election, the president in the power never rests. I want to put it up to you everyone on this platform. You think that the president, if God forbid passed on, do we have General Jessica Arupo take on? It is up to you. But in simple terms, when you try to compare the civic and the political liberties between Uganda and other countries, sincerely speaking, it is worsening. Moderator, do you get me?
Yes, thank you.
Do you still,
thank you, Ivan.
Do you get me? Do you get me?
Yes, Ivan, I'm able to get you.
Well, as I conclude, the civic and the political liberty in Uganda is in a sorry state. Much as those of our neighbors may not be good, but we are badly off. Because regarding our good laws. One man one time said, the law is what it is, not what it ought to be. So I will not distance myself from the submission of Jena, where she stated that the civic and the political liberties are just in paper, but in actions we don't have them.
Okay, thank you so much, Ivan, for that. Now I would like to move to Jena. Yes, I'm moving to Jena. So, Jena, from independence to date, how is Uganda faring in terms of observance of civic and civic liberties?
Oh, well, from independence, 3/4 of that period is under the leadership of Godfrey. So it is very challenging to us Ugandans. But remember, the first statement I made was that without civil and political rights, development is incomplete. So the level of development in the country shows us the extent of the liberties we have in Uganda. Taking Singapore as a case study, by independence, Uganda was richer than Singapore. It was more developed than Singapore. But we are looking at it right now. Singapore is a third world developed country, and Uganda is still developing. Actually, it is a third. I do not know which level it is on, but the level of development of Uganda is really bad because of the failure of observance of the rights and the liberties. If I'm to assess the extent, I'll just relate to what a better Uganda would be if we were observing the liberties. First of all, what shows that we are not developed is the fact that we do not have independence in carrying out the politics or in carrying out the voting. We don't have the right to fair voting or to fair representation. For example, recently, Saidu one time wrote an article and it was like, these previous elections, 2021, over 99% of the polling stations did have voters lists. Ladies and gentlemen, Uganda is a country whereby someone is voted into power and wins by a percentage more than the population of the area. You know? So if we are to look at the examples that are happening, that we are seeing in Uganda, really do not show anywhere that we are observing the rights and liberties of individuals. We only have them on paper, and it is very challenging. You find that, for example, in our school, in our university currently, we have international students from Somalia, from Malawi, and these guys be like, Uganda has very good laws, but ladies and gentlemen, they are on paper. They are not anywhere. And they feel like, because recently in 2019, the Malawi, they also had election petitions and they had to re-elect the current president. We look at Kenya, 2013, the presidential election petition was successful. But Uganda, it will never be successful. Why? Because of the bottlenecks that have been mentioned. As Godfrey said, the rule of the gun or the power of the gun. As in, we all live in a life that is full of intimidation. We are always intimidated over every little thing we do. We even intimidated over the posts we do on WhatsApp, posts we do on social media, because we do not have the right of expression. We don't have that freedom of expression. We do not have those rights that are written in the Constitution, those rights that are written in all the acts and statutes, you know. So if someone really tells me to assess this, I would say we have not done any standard progress in achieving liberties. Because if I relate from the first president, one to Obote, and then the other two. We have not realized any significant way of expressing and telling people that, yeah, this is how it is. We do not have any specific example, except in 1986, 1987. I think that was the end of, it was the only time and the end of civic liberties in Uganda. But after that time, really everything is redundant. We don't have any development of libertism or getting liberties, and it all can be explained in the fact that we are underdeveloped as a country. Because if we had developed, if we had those freedoms, people would have the freedom of trade, but we are having nepotism, we are having contracts that are achieved by, look at the bridge, the Ginger Bridge. Ladies and gentlemen, this bridge got broken after like three months, and it had cracks and they had to repair it. But how would you as a president go for that contract, for such a contract with a company that you feel you're not contented with? You know? So Uganda, if we only want to assess civil liberty, political liberty, we just look at the level of development. And the fact that we are underdeveloped, it shows that we are not in any way. We do not have any way of saying that we have the liberties in the country.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Jena, for that. I would like to bring Fred into that discussion. So Fred, earlier on, when we had Ivan discuss the bottlenecks to the enjoyment of civic and political liberties, he talked about target laws. You talked about target laws. He brought in the issues of POMA, that is Public Order Management Act. And you yourself, you talked about overstaying power and other bottlenecks. So I would like to ask the question, so to what extent is the law being used to curtail civic and political liberties in Uganda?
Thank you very much, the moderator. You know, there are various issues, and we have different people with different brains and intellectual capacity. So, of course, our assessment is always different. So in order for I not to be privy to my discussion, allow me to literally inform every person listening to me that the extent is greater. I mean greater. So to a greater extent, laws have been used to impede the enjoyment of the different liberties. Moving on the line, allow me to first draw your attention to the few advantages we have got in the overstay in power of His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. What I can say about his overstay in power is that at least we got a fairly stable condition of peace, because we all know all dictators, their best equipment is the military. So Uganda has tried to stabilize its internal peace because we have, of course, as they claim, the OLA army led by Joseph Kony was, of course, sent away. And of course, we have seen different battalions in different countries for peacekeeping missions. But going back on the limb, let us look at, first of all, POMA, as you have well said. When was it brought? Why was it brought in? And afterwards, it had to be repealed because its role had been achieved at a certain extent. This was brought in at a time when Kizza Besigye, as an opponent to His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, was very, very strong when it comes to his political base. He had come up with something where it was called walk to work, due to the increased prices in fuel and everything. So in order to curb that, they had to bring in that aspect, such that people cannot in any manner come together and make a movement or carry out any reasonable discussion without informing the police or anybody. And clearly that is an infringement, because we shall not always be in line with what the police wants to do. What if our demonstration has to be staged against the police? Will they allow us? That is the first aspect. Former. It was brought up, first of all, to check the political base, which was very strong and firm for the presidential candidate by then. And then it also helped these different yellow MPs in different regions, because for them, they would go on and carry on their different gatherings and preach their evil gospel. But then for the opposition that had come with the good news, literally they would be caned, they would be rubbished, they would be tortured, and many would be imprisoned. Going on the second one, let us look at what is being, or what is in the pipeline, the bail issue. On earth, we all know that when it comes to the law, a person before judgment, while still in police custody, that person is a suspect. When he comes to court, he's the accused. It means we have not yet found out whether this person is really guilty or not. But then even before you find out that, if you refuse or if you deny that person a right to bail, it means you have already started punishing him before ascertaining whether he's right, whether he committed the offense or not. Is that human? Is that human? Why is it coming at this time? It is literally coming up at this time when the no fact of opposition has a base, a strong base of opposition. Now that these MPs of NUP and their leaders can coordinate and carry on different and pass on different information, now they want to curb them. How do we curb them? First of all, they bring in the rules and regulations of COVID. When other countries, almost every country is saying now COVID is okay, people can gather. In our country, trust me, schools are just being opened, universities are just being opened, and we are going to see children of 8 years in kindergarten next year. What is that? What is it targeting? It is targeting the education system. Which education system? They literally want, it's very easy to govern a stupid person. It's very easy. Why are they bringing these regulations that are harsh? Rules and regulations pertaining the COVID situation. They know ruling stupid people is very good. Why are they bringing those regulations? Don't move at night, which curfew. They are trying, I know people are now trying to steal everything they can during those hours, because who will get them? Who will get them? They are well connected. Even the trucks that will be moving the things that are stolen, literally, they are owned and they have red number plates. Trust me, our nation is rotting. And to a greater extent, very many laws are being developed to curtail the enjoyment of these liberties. Imagine you remove such a right to bail. A person killed the other one accidentally. We all know that a right to life is executed. When you kill someone, it is executable. If at all you have a right reason, why you kill someone by accident, why you kill someone maybe in defense of property, also of defense. But when you deny that person who was trying to protect himself from being killed, deny that person bail, you're punishing a person for nothing. Who are they targeting? Look at our current situation. According to the rules that were put up in this COVID situation, when you move at night after curfew, when you gather, you are charged with murder. It is a hearsay. Now, if you charged with murder and there is no bail, it means they're now targeting those people that would maybe come up and join to talk sense. Literally, very tiny laws, they're being made and targeting specific people. The political environment is very, very, very now stupid. That most of the political players right now are in fear for their lives. If they're not in fear for their lives, they're in fear for Chitalia. Chitalia has become a den where you are thrown and then your feet has to rot for no reason. And then they will say you came up with that sickness yourself. Imagine. So to a greater extent, laws are currently being made in order to target those different people. Let us draw our attention to the current case of Muhammad.
As you conclude, Fred, we will get back to you later on.
Indeed. As I conclude, Madam Moderator, allow me to draw my attention to that case. Literally, this case, in a murder case that was, this is an appeal. The guy was charged with the others and then given a penalty of 40 years in incarceration. But from nowhere, the sentence is being reduced to 10 years, to 18 years and 19 years respectively. But why is this being done? People are putting up all this because of money, corruption, everything. And trust me, at the end of the day, it's going to be we who are educated right now to keep quiet because we fear to be killed, because we fear for our lives, because as a student right now, I fear that I might be stopped from continuing in such a university that has literally an act of government and prevents partisan politics. Trust me, I speak about that. They get to know. But all I understand, law, rule of law, reasonableness, intelligence is not for the timid. Trust me, we shall use our intelligence and these platforms and to show what has to be done. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mrs. Moderator.
Okay, thank you so much, Fred, and thank you for that deliberation. I'm moving to Godfrey now. Yes, Godfrey, earlier on when I posed the question on the current state of civic and political liberties in Uganda, Jena told us how the state is really worrying and how we have laws on paper, but these laws are not respected. Later on, we had a discussion with Fred on who are those responsible for the current state of civic and political liberties in Uganda. Fred pointed us towards government being the responsible body for that worrying state of civic and political liberty in Uganda. Now, I direct the question to you. Do you agree with Fred that the government is to blame for the current state of civic and political liberties in Uganda? Or do you think that the citizens themselves should also take responsibility at some point? Thank you.
Well, Madam, thank you very much for that question. In the first place, I would blame us, the citizens, for being cowards for a very long period of time. But to a bigger extent, of course, I will shift the blame after blaming the people. But of course, that one is to a small extent. I will shift the bigger blame to the government, because really, we cannot fight with under the power of the gun. Madam Moderator, the government has a very big part that it has played in this aspect. The fact, like the panelists have said, the status quo is not good. Completely, it's not good. Like even I said in my opening first statement. Completely. When you speak and make an advancement in society that is in attack, to the government, you become an enemy. The government, the participants, the people in the government are many times caught offside. Look at the ministers who would be hoping in establishing such aspects. A minister of government comes in parliament and is giving a report about the killings in a certain place, but what he or she is speaking about is only a lie. How many times have we seen the person in charge of police, the big man, Fred Enanga, lying on something that all Ugandans know on a national television? National televisions are national platforms. How many times have we seen this, Madam Moderator? So at the end of the day, we'll blame the government. The government should give people the power. The government should let people speak when such aspects, when such times come. The fact remains that all these people are stakeholders. Look at the traditional leaders. When you look at the other aspect of civic, let's look at the religious leaders. These are highly respected people in government. in the settings of the church. When a leader of the church speaks, the people listen. But can they speak? So at the end of the day, I know it will take us long, given the bad status quo, to gain back the glory that has been lost. The fact remains that when this current government captures power in 1986, the country is not so good, the situation is not good, but it gets with its 10-point agenda, it gets along with development, with putting everything right. And the 1995 constitution is actually good, workable in papers, but what is currently on the board? So at the end of the day, we have to get along. The people have to work it for themselves, especially in this government, to see that we get where we want. So, Madam Moderator, we all have a part to contribute in this, but the government, like I said, plays a very big role in seeing that our liberties are curtailed, and seeing that the population does not speak, and seeing that the population does not check what the government does. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much. That was Godfrey. Thank you for that declaration. Now, we would like to shift the discussion into the solution part. Now, I posed the question, and I'll start with Ivan. So Ivan, what do you think we should do in order to ensure that civic and political liberties are observed? You have 2 minutes. Yes, Ivan, what do you think we should do as I'm saying us as citizens of this country? What do you think should be done in order to ensure the observance of civic and political liberties?
Thank you so much, Madam Moderator, for this, again, yet another opportunity to address this. Having talked about the bottlenecks, here comes a question on what should be done in order to observe civic and political liberties. I'm not going to go far away from what I've stated before. When we talked about target laws and the policy, we must build back better institutions and institutionalism. This means that if the judiciary is supposed to give justice, it should be constructed on the foundation of justice orientation, so that people are not going to take it for granted. For instance, why would civilians be tried in martial courts, and at the end of the day, they drop their cases as if it doesn't matter? So we should address the issue of building institutions and institutionalism. When we talk about the public service, it should be independent and non-partisan, so that people are not scared to say out what they need to say simply because they lose a job. We should bring back rule of law. Rule of law anyone should be below the law, even if you, regardless of being the stature of your stature in society. This is going to see that the president and those in the command are going to respect these rights, because when the law prevails, all people are going to be underneath it. Another solution we should not underlook is by, first of all, sensitizing people about these liberties. Much as the state and the whoever players are responsible for the curtailing of these liberties, you cannot live without mentioning that people are ignorant. And when someone is not aware of what they own, of course, there is no way they demand for it. So all agencies, NGOs, the state itself, because it is its obligation to make people know what is entailed in the Constitution, which it has failed, by the way. So people should be made aware of these rights. And then,
okay, as you conclude.
And then, yes, as I conclude, the state should observe and respect these agencies we subscribe to, because this is going to make it appear more substantive and straight. When we subscribe to the ICC, we should respect what the ICC puts on board. when we subscribe to the International Convention for Human Rights, we should do the same. So that when we respect this, it will ensure that everything is in order. As I conclude, we may have everything in place, but lawlessness will not make anything work. Therefore, the biggest solution to take on this is to actualize rule of law and constitutionalism. This will see everything work because the rights and the liberties will be respected. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Okay, thank you so much, Ivan. I would like to pose the same question to Jena. So, Jena, what do you think we should do to ensure observance of civic and political liberties in this country?
Madam Moderator, I beg your pardon.
I'm posing the same question to you that I posed earlier to Ivan, which is that what should be done in order to ensure the observance of civic and political liberties in this country?
Yes, thank you so much. For us to get a solution, we should know the problems. And as earlier assessed, we've spoken about the problems, the challenges we're facing. So the first solution I would ask, or I would pray that the citizens of Uganda can go for, we should be vigilant. Let us improve on the level of vigilance that we have as citizens, starting from the voting of LOC1 chairpersons, the voting of members of parliament, the voting of anything that needs to be done. In the issue of, on the same issue of vigilance, I advise us citizens to make our own choice and let some other person's choice be an option for you. For example, during election, a lot of people be like, I cannot vote because there is no need, there is nothing that is going to change. So I would advise the citizens, me inclusive, to be more vigilant and engage in change making decisions or engage in activities that can create change. The second issue I would do is that I would advise, or I would prefer and pray that we do more demonstrations on a frequent basis. I know it might turn to be violent according to the current situation and number of army personnel we have, or those persons who are having guns on them. But I pray that we have more regular and constant demonstrations, not only coming up by in the time of elections, because that is the time when some persons are desperately looking for votes and ways on how to terminate people's lives. But if we go on doing demonstrations on daily basis, doing demonstrations on weekly basis, we carry out those peaceful demonstrations, I would pray it will be successful one time. Because we see all countries that have achieved this have carried on demonstrations. Countries like South Africa, various countries, even countries in Asia, a lot of countries. So demonstrations, I would also suggest it. And secondly, the third thing is that I would prefer, as a policy achievement, I would prefer that members of parliament or persons who are voted into public offices to be engaged in some kind of leadership training. Not because the only qualification you have in Uganda for you becoming a politician and having a political office is only finishing Form 6. So it is, I am in position to go for a member of parliament position, and I apply and I contest. So I would prefer that maybe members of parliament go through some specific training, or let it be a qualification and let it be a necessity for us as the persons who intend to become members of parliament with a positive mind to go for leadership training. Then my last, as Ivan said, I would pray that we observe and employ the rule of law in Uganda. Because basically, if someone is to analyze my whole discussion, I've mainly stressed about the rule of law that doesn't exist in Uganda, but it's just on paper. So I pray that we as citizens come up and demonstrate for our rights, because we have a right to peaceful demonstration. I know it will turn to be violent, but it is okay. It will be violent. Some people will die, some people will stay, and those who will stay will live in the peace that those people who would have died have lived. So I pray the biggest thing I would pray for is demonstration.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Jena. Let me move to Fred and bring Fred into the discussion. Fred, we are at a point where we are looking for solutions. So I would like to ask a different question. So what role can be played by university students to ensure observance of civic and political liberties in Uganda? Yes, Fred, you have the floor.
Thank you, moderator. So before I proceed to what you have clearly asked me, it is a very good question, but I'll first rebut a bit that very many universities that are not government owned rebuke what we call partisan politics. And there is no way you can destroy a nursery bed and then you expect a good output, right? There is no way you're going to kill the little chicken and then you expect grown-ups. No, not really. First of all universities should at least accept partisan politics within them in order to train tomorrow, the leaders for tomorrow. And then two, these universities should also at least put a compulsory course about leadership. Literally training a university student who a leader must be. What should a leader do? What are the professional ethics? What kind of etiquette should a leader exhibit? First, that will help them to nurture themselves in that line. That is one. Two, it will help them to also know which people to vote, because we all know the Electoral Commission has to carry out voter education or civic education before election. But literally, they're just like moving around in buses. Nothing is done. So if this can be added on the syllabus, they add on, at least for a full semester, where you undergo a leadership course training you who is a good leader. How should he conduct himself? If you want to be a leader, what should you do? I think that can be good. And then thirdly, also university students must also come up at least and remove that timidness within them. They should come up in arms, because we study or we learn not to stay with the theory in the head, but also practice what we have studied, to put it in action. But the moment a university student sits around, it means that literally he has learned nothing. But would also prefer that these university students are at least offered more internship positions in different governance offices. For example, offices of the Prime Minister, the Parliament, everywhere they broaden up the space such that these people undergo different trainings even before they become part of the leaders. And then next, university students should also be at least advised to keep away from commercial politics. Because if you look at, sorry to say, I won't mention that university, but there is a celebrity university where there is partisan politics, but people are just fed with money. Literally, a certain person will come up for a post, but all he wants, he doesn't want to become a leader, but he just wants the money. So he does not care if he fails or not. So it ends up mixing the charismatic kind of love for politics with money. But where am I drawing your attention to lastly? I'm drawing your attention to the quality of education. There are courses that are stupid, I'm sorry to say. There are courses that literally don't even add anything to our current nation, or that don't solve any problem to our current state of the nation. But why are they keeping it there? Because they know stupid people are very easy to rule and govern. Before you put the burden on the university students, let also the National Council of Higher Education try to fix the syllabus and put those courses. Remember, there are certain courses they removed from Magala, those ones that have those leadership training. For example, political science. I don't know whether it exists still, because that's what I wanted to do there. But boom, I didn't see it on the catalog by the time I wanted to join. So literally, also students, we are less to blame. I think the government and the dead institutions that are planning for us even if we try to come up in arms under these umbrella organizations that have very, very good programs like Center for Constitutional Governance, again, they sit on us. Because now they are saying we have an act, you should not engage in partisan politics. Who told you can get a tomato before you put it in the bed?
Okay.
Thank you, moderator.
Thank you so much, Fred, for that good deliberation. I would like to shift now to Godfrey. So Godfrey, I would like to ask the same question that I asked Fred. So the question is, what role can be played by university students to ensure observance of civic and political liberties in Uganda?
Madam, we already analyzed that the challenge that we have when it comes to civic and political liberties in the country is the power of the gun. But what can the universities, especially the university students, do in seeing that the status quo changes? When organizations, when institutions like Center for Constitutional Governance comes on board to organize such discussions, I think it already shapes and gives students a sense of direction. Madam Moderator, you'll admit and acknowledge that many students or many people in this country, like I said, the problem of being cowards as the citizens, the fact is we do not know what we want. But when students come from universities and platforms like Center for Constitutional Governance come on board and give students such platform, already there was a training. I doubt if the students who are in that training are of the same thinking like the students who are just in Jena, other institutions have not had a platform for this. So students should have the zeal. You see, such platforms should be extended to all the students so that they know their rights. Students do not know their rights. And if students got down to understand what they want and what their country holds for, trust me, Madam Moderator, will have a better country. The fact remains that youth today in universities are fanatics of football. Now today, TikTok has taken over the youths. When you check on the status and WhatsApp and Facebook, what is trending? It is either TikTok or Man U losing or Arsenal winning. This is the message that is being delivered. But if such platforms come down to the students discuss and panel beat and have a wider thinking that their country is better than this. And through such, the students will have hope. Maybe lastly, what else can students do? Madam, the fact remains that it is very easy to rule people who are economically down. It is very easy because you will pass a policy and everybody will be down, and that is what is killing our country. But one thing that I would say about the students in the universities is I would encourage us, the students ourselves, to start exploiting our talents and skills. Every time I listen to people like His Excellency of Noop Chagulanyi, I listen to people like Bugembe, I listen to people like Chameleon. These are people who have not yet utilized so much of their education, but they used much of their talents and skills to see that they get what they have. And trust me, there are people now who can speak. When Bobo Wine speaks, people listen simply because he has something. He is a person that has exploited his talent and is already somewhere. But a poor man from the village cannot come and start fighting this government. So this is what we have to do. We should exploit our skills, and we see that we have a better future, so that tomorrow when we stand to speak, we know what we want, we have our rights. And this is the agenda that we can have as the university students. Thank you, Madam Moderator.
Thank you so much for that good deliberation. We are now towards the end of our debate. And I would like to give each panelist an opportunity to make concluding remarks. I'm going to start with Ivan. Ivan, you have 2 minutes to give us your concluding remarks.
I was saying, I first want to thank Center for Constitutional Governance for this platform that we can air out such views. Perhaps maybe it is the government's deliberate move not to hear from us, but you people give us chance. We have already spoken about quite a lot of things regarding civic and political liberties. But then I cannot live without mentioning the current matter which is trending. At a time when corruption is at its peak, at a time where the health sector has been exposed as the weakest, at a time when we need to plan for how people report back to school safely, here comes a matter about scrapping bail. And it is worsened that the president wants to scrap off bail, not because of pressing matters like corruption, but for murderers, because he alleges that people, when they go out there, they are killed through mobs, of which he cannot show any. This summarizes what we have spoken today. At a time whereby an MOP is thrown on upon charges that he has killed someone known to the state who cannot run away, but when you watch the matter through which the way through which they are arrested, it is trying to depict a picture of how you, an ordinary person, you will be treated. I, who did literature, treats that as a symbol to teach a lasting lesson to the rest of the population that do not risk tamper with this.
Okay.
It is from this perspective that I want to conclude that civil and the political rights are badly off in our country. We must do all it can, even if we make this go further in the institutions of learning, so that we shall propagate a generation which is alive and aware of what to do next. Otherwise, I conclude by thanking you people for giving us this opportunity. I hope that we progress to the next level so that we get a chance to say more what we have. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ivan, for that. Before I invite Jena, I would like to bring Mercy Chirabo into the discussion. Mercy, you're going to introduce yourself. I'm hoping that you are listening in. You're going to introduce yourself and you'll give us, according to what are the bottlenecks to the enjoyment of civic and political liberties. And then you're going to give us a solution, what we should do about those bottlenecks. And you have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Kazungu Masi Chirabo, and I would like to, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to bring me back on board. And first of all, I would like to address the question on the ignorance of the constitution of the people by the people. Many people don't know their rights, and it's one of the major reasons why we are having a lot of issues, and it's actually one of the root causes of everything that we're actually discussing today. So basically, that is one of the major bottlenecks in this panel today. And it is one thing that we have to look at if we must solve any other solutions, because just like the other panelists were talking about how people they refer to them as stupid, but I feel like it's just the ignorance. They don't know the law, they don't know what the constitution is, or they don't know what actually their rights are, and that's why most of them are acting stupid as they were being referred to. But I believe that all this is happening because they don't know nothing about the law, and in a solution to that, we just have to make sure that we encourage and we get ways of trying to educate the public, trying to educate the masses, because you realize most of the people are actually not English speaking people, and yet they're the biggest population. So in order to involve everyone in the struggle, we need to understand and involve everyone right from the grassroots. So we have to include the people that do not even speak English. How? By teaching them about the law and teaching them about their rights. And secondly, we also need to, another bottleneck is the fact that the state controls everything. I was actually seated here and questioning why we should have power surrounding just one person. The judiciary has nothing to say. It is all coming through one person. Like literally all the arms of the government are ruled and governed by one person. And we are actually questioning the person's decisions in most of the decisions that he makes. So the solution to that is, it starts with you. You were talking about the students, the university students, how they're misusing social media platforms. It starts with us. It starts with the Facebook, it starts with the WhatsApp, it starts with the TikTok that you're actually against. But we can use these very platforms to ensure that we are having a certain movement to inform the masses about what is going on, and also to make sure that everyone is involved, because we cannot do anything big if some people are actually excluded. And I would also love to just get into a certain question that was, to talk about something that one of the panelists was addressing, of how some courses are irrelevant. I feel like there is no irrelevant course, but I understand, as far as I know, everyone has a way of informing the rest of the people and using what they have, or using their talents and whatever they are doing, in order that we are actually having one major goal that we are looking at, in this panel. So I feel like everyone, whether they're doing law, whether they're doing business studies, whether they're doing education, everyone can use everything they have so that we actually can achieve the goal of having civil liberties in Uganda, in our country. I beg to raise my case.
Okay, thank you so much, Mercy, for that good deliberation. I would like to now move to Jena and get her concluding remarks. You have 2 minutes, Jena.
I would like to thank the Center for Constitutional Government for this platform where you have given us, and we are able to share our ideas and thoughts and feelings over this specific topic. So first off, in the matter of conclusion, I would just like to remind us of the topic, which is the enjoyment of civil and political liberties in Uganda. If, sincerely speaking, if this is not the only platform that is putting up such debates, it would be a very, very good thing in Uganda. And just like we have seen the bottlenecks, we have seen the challenges we are facing in Uganda that are failing us to achieve the liberties. We've looked at the solutions, the possible solutions. I believe that these solutions really are going to be had by a few persons. And how beautiful would it be for these people who hear about it to forward it to the next person. I mean, the beauty of Uganda will only be experienced, or will only be realized by the fact that we get the perspective that it begins with us. Remember, in 2019, there was some debate about corruption. The National Debate Council held, the theme was anti-corruption in Uganda. And really, it was a very instrumental thing that people got so engaged, and students learned to know what is happening in their country. People do research. So I pray that at least organizations or people who have the power to carry on and facilitate such debates do it. It would be a very beautiful thing. But in conclusion, really, I would prefer and beg that let us citizens come up with, each and everyone knows a better way of doing it. Each and everyone knows a better way of engaging with a better country. Because we all have a vision, we all envision a country that is free from this arbitrary arrest, free from anything that is unfair and all those injustices. So I just pray that we embrace the fact that it begins.
Okay, thank you so much, Jena. So Fred, your concluding remarks in 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, and preferably allow me to thank the Center for Constitutional Governance for such a very, very good idea that you came up with in order to bring us on board, and at least we articulate what has been burning within our heads. And in conclusion, I'd like to retract one of my statements where I said some of the courses are irrelevant. Well, my intention was not to attack any other course, but my intention was to bring it to your notice that there are certain courses that would be merged in order to make them more and more standard. For example, there are certain courses that almost teach the same things, but they just change the label of their names. So how I wish they can be merged, and then that lessens the time and also the plagiarism that is going on. They at times they come on and advertise a certain job, and then the scope is too long. But if it is one thing and then a person gets and understands it well, it would be much better. And in conclusion, I pray that in such platforms or in such discussions, we also engage some of our leaders to listen to some of the ideas that the different panelists come up with. Since while I'm in Mbale, you'll have another discussion of people from Kabale University, from other far regions. So this platform can be a unitary base where even the leaders pick some of our information and what we want to pass on to them. And trust me, with such organizations and settings like Center for Constitutional Governance, our nation is now seeing some light, and at least I can see where we're going, even though we can go nowhere with a very old, I don't know how to call it, but with a very old system that does not at all entertain anything like advice or change, but rather advisors who have to advise it. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, Fred. Godfrey, your concluding remarks in 2 minutes.
Madam, in conclusion to the topic, I want to say that you can never at one time stop an idea whose time has come. There will be a time in this country, and I've never had hope like I have today, that the idea of political liberty and civic liberty will come to pass. The gradual movements, the small steps that we can take, like we said, initiating such discussions to the youth and seeing that we form a young agenda that continuously forms our future is one aspect that is very fundamental. Of course, like I said, we cannot fight with a gun, but such engagements, letting people know their rights through channels like Center for Constitutional Governance is very paramount, and I want to take this opportunity to thank the platform. One day, in the old times, man called Martin Luther King said that if you can't fly, you do the running. If you can't run, you walk. If you can't walk, you do the crawling. But in whatever you do, you must not stop going. So such small acts and small events will push us to a cause that we have for the future, and we should have hope and the strength that it is the little innovations, the little discussion like this that will push us to an idea and a future that we all deserve. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, for this opportunity.
Thank you. Let's have Mercy. Mercy, your concluding remarks in 2 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, Mercy,
thank you so
we
much
can.
for the okay. Thank you so much for the opportunity that you have given us. Thank you for the platform that you have given us today. And I just pray that everyone that will get this information can actually use it as a way of us, at the end of the day, achieving the civil liberties that we're actually debating on today or discussing today. Because usually we always have these discussions and they always have a question behind them. And we get to understand that the reason is because we are not having these liberties. So now that we are having such platforms with us, now that we are having the chance to actually express how we feel and what we think and what we know about these topics, I pray that this kind of platform can be extended to every other person in the country, not only students, even other people down, in other places. And I pray that everyone can actually take the chance to widen and broaden their knowledge about the law and understand their human rights. And that's the only way we can be able to fight properly to get our civil and political liberties in place. I thank you all.
Okay. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the panelists who joined us today from Islamic University in Uganda. I would like to appreciate you people. I would like to appreciate the fact that you were a very active panel. I would like to also extend my gratitude to Center for Constitutional Governance and Civic Space TV for having organized this debate. And our topic for today was the enjoyment of civic and political liberties in Uganda. What are the bottlenecks? I have been your moderator. I'm Jena, and I would like this debate to end here. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.